Borough's playoff hopes suffer a major blow as we lose out in a crucial playoff clash down at the Den. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Boro Review Show, and today we are sadly discussing another defeat for Boro at the end of a week which has been quite damaging for Boro's playoff aspirations. You wouldn't think 8 days ago we were coming back from a brilliant night at Ewood Park where Boro got themselves up to 5th and looked like we'd taken charge of the playoff battle. 8 days and 2 games later, we're now sat with our playoff aspirations on the ropes and most certainly out of our hands. As albeit at the time of recording, the damage done has only been that Bristol City have gained a point on us if Coventry win at Hull on Monday night. Bearing in mind, Hull have the worst home record in the Championship. Coventry will have a 5-point gap over Boro. Bristol City will have a 4-point gap over Boro. And now we have Millwall and West Brom breathing down our necks, with us only in front of both of them on goal difference. So until that Coventry game, it's hard to be too conclusive at the moment. But I think either way, this has been a rough week for Boro. And I'm not going to say that our playoff hopes are done. I'm not going to say they're dead, because perspective is key. If you'd ask Millwall or West Brom fans who have just levelled on 60 points with Boro if they think their playoff hopes are alive off the back of both wins at the weekend, they'd both be saying quite confidently that their playoff hopes are now alive once again because they're coming off the back of victories. But they're still the same number of points off the top 6 as Boro. So I think perspective is key. And although we probably feel quite rough about it at the moment, Millwall and West Brom fans will be looking up with optimism. And there's no reason why we can't do that either. But that doesn't change the fact that if Coventry do open the gap to 5, I can't see Boro surpassing that 5-point and bridging that 5-point gap. With only 4 games to go, I think even a 4-point gap to Bristol City looks pretty unsurmountable at the moment. Boro would have to win 3 of their final 4 games. Undoubtedly, we'd have to win at Coventry on the final day, which looks tough enough as it is. So although it would be quite reactive and extreme of me to just say Boro's season's over, it isn't. Not quite. But my God, the life support machine is on right now, and Monday is a big night for Boro. But the key thing is that it's out of our hands, and that's the worst thing about it. We're going to need help from elsewhere, and that's never a good thing when you are fighting amongst a pack of 4, 5, 6 teams for only 2 positions. But let's take a deeper look into the game then, because Boro went to the Den in what, as we discussed in our preview, was a playoff 6-pointer. A win would have eliminated Millwall out the playoff pack. As it happens, they've now levelled with us and are only behind us on goal difference. And to be fair, the second half was key. You know, I think, like a lot of Boro games, really, it was a tale of 2 halves. It was the same old issue with Boro, and that was that we simply can't string a full 90-minute performance together. We either have one good first half and a poor second half, or vice versa. And unfortunately, a few issues of late once again came back to bite Boro in the first half, where we were the better side. And then the second half performance was, quite honestly, nowhere near good enough. And based off of the second half especially, Millwall very much deserved the result. The bottom line was Boro were outfought and outthought. You know, the manager was outthought on the touchline, the players were outfought on the pitch, and we didn't take advantage of when we were on top in the game, and we simply weren't good enough in the final third, which is a similar tale as to what we've been saying quite a lot over the last game or 2. Starting with the lineup though, it actually was the starting 11 that I wanted. When I saw the 11 drop, I felt very positive, because it was the 11 I wanted in the preview. It was the 11 players I think most people wanted. He dropped Iheanacho for Morgan Whittaker, who, regardless of his performance today, which we will get to, I think his substitute appearances had warranted a start, and Iheanacho rightfully was taken out the firing line. But even though they were the 3 I wanted behind Tommy Conway with Whittaker, Bergsorg and Azaz, the main reason why we all wanted that change was so we could fit our best players in what we believe is their best position. The whole point, and I made a video on TikTok about this, the whole point of taking out Iheanacho and bringing in Whittaker, I thought, was to put Azaz back into his best position, which is in the 10, move Bergzorg back onto the side he's most comfortable, which is the left, and put Whittaker on the right-hand side, to which he's most comfortable because he likes to cut in on his left. But we didn't do that, and I don't know why. Even though we made the personnel changes we wanted, he still had Bergzorg on the right, which I don't think's working. He persisted with Azaz on the left, which I don't think is working, and he put Whittaker in the middle when I think we've seen the best of him off of the right-hand side. So even though the 11 players on the pitch were what we wanted, the makeup of Borough's front four was still incredibly puzzling, and it didn't work once again. Now, the first half was the better half for Boro. What I will say is the first 10-15 minutes, it was a bit of a wrestling match, really. It's always tough when you go into the Den to really establish a foothold in the game because they'll come out the traps quickly, they'll have a tough atmosphere, they'll make it a really tough, rough game for you. And I thought Boro had to weather that in the first 15-20 minutes. But from sort of 20 minutes onwards, I thought Boro did well. I thought we got a grip of the game really well. And the key thing was, when you've got two styles that contrast as much as Boro and Millwall, you've got to ensure that the game is played in the way you want it to be played in. And Millwall want it to be physical, they want it to be scrappy, they want it to be tough, long balls, second balls. They want to cause chaos, right? Boro want things to be a lot more refined, where we have time to pass the ball, play it around, get into our rhythm. And as we've said many times this season, when Boro are in stroke, we're brilliant. When we're knocked out of stroke, we're really not good. And we started getting into our stroke from that 20-minute period onwards up towards half-time. But unfortunately, as has happened in the last few games, second half against Blackburn, the entire Leeds game, Boro's final third once again let us down massively. We were good in midfield. I thought the midfielders were good, a good first half. The defence was solid first half. But again, the front four in that final third were just not clicking. Again, like the last two games, they were making poor decisions. They were holding on to the ball in great shooting positions. The passing in the final third was off. It was just not quite sharp. It just wasn't quite clicking. And again, in them really good areas, Boro were just not making the most of them and essentially not creating enough. You know, Delano Bergzorg, there was a moment where he was running in on goal. He had Tommy Conway making a run to his right and he took a step over, then he rolled the ball to his left foot and I'm screaming, just either shoot or release the ball to Conway. And then he loses out. He takes too long. Azaz is criminal for doing the same thing. Chopping in, chopping out, ball rolls, fake shots. And you're just screaming for them to either take a shot or play a pass. And again, in that final third, Boro were just really, really poor decision-making. Quality as well. The quality was miles off. And that's what's been our undoing over the last two games. And unfortunately, it was our undoing once again because that 25-minute spell in the first half up to half-time was the spell to which we had Millwall and we had to make them pay. We had to be ruthless and we had to take our chances while we had the dominance, the territory, the possession, but we didn't. And we got to half-time with the scores still at 0-0, with the only one big chance Boro created in the whole first half fell to Morgan Whittaker, and it was a big one. If we're honest, he was slipped in. I think it was by Delano Bergzorg. I don't know if he's leaning back or he slips. I'm not too sure, but he sort of leans back and, you know, either side of the goalkeeper, it's as good as a goal, but he just hits it straight into the goalkeeper's arms with his left foot. And that was the only real big chance Boro created in the first half, despite having by more the better of the possession, the territory, and being the better side. However, we didn't make that dominant spell pay. Millwall punished us because not only did they come out second half a different side, we were outthought on the touchline as well. Alex Neil realised that Millwall weren't playing the game they wanted to play. We were playing the game that Boro wanted to play, and he wanted to make sure that the game became a game Millwall would flourish in, and that would be a game where it's physical, where there's long balls, headers. It's an uncomfortable game for Boro. And we've seen on many occasions this season when Boro are forced into an uncomfortable scrap, we don't fare all that well. And I think he recognised that that was the sort of game it had to become. And that's exactly what Millwall did. Because they come out second half and quite honestly, the first 15 minutes, it was an absolute bombardment of Millwall attacks, and I don't know how we didn't concede, to be honest. It all started from one key moment. Rav Vandenberg, when he really should have just cleared his lines, played a really poor ball into midfield and lost the ball, conceded a free kick. And that just led to a domino effect of free kick, cross, corner, where Boro were just put under so much severe pressure, and it was just one Millwall attack after the other. There was big blocks in there from Dijksteel, which might have presented a clear goal-scoring opportunity. It was really desperate defending at times. Mark Travers made another absolutely massive save to prevent it from going 1-0. And you think maybe Boro have weathered the storm, but Millwall made changes. They went to a 4-4-2. And as we've seen many times in many games this season, the opposition manager is the more proactive. They're the ones who make the changes. They're the ones who roll the dice. Alex Neil did that. Carrick didn't. And they got their rewards on the 65th minute. Across from Aziz on the left-hand side wasn't cleared well enough. I think it was Rav Vandenberg who got something on the end of it, but it fell straight to Negley, who basically had the time and space in the box to take a touch and fire into the bottom right corner. Mark Travers routed to his spot, could not do anything about it, and Millwall got exactly what they deserved for me. In that second half, they were the ones who were proactive. They were the ones who took the initiative. They turned the game into a game that perfectly suited them and their strengths, and a game that nullified Boro completely, because as we well know, when Boro aren't allowed to step into our rhythm, we don't create much at all. And that was the tale of the second half, really. From the moment that Millwall scored, they still remained pretty comfortable. I mentioned in my preview, they've got a playoff level defence, and when you go 1-0 down to a side, you've got a defence as good as theirs. You're leaving yourself a very difficult task to get back into the game, never mind score twice and win the game, which is what Boro realistically needed to do in this game today. And up until the very death, Marcus Forss had a chance when a cross from the left found its way to him. I've got to say their goalkeeper made a tremendous save. Boro didn't create a damn thing in the second half, and it was just a really poor display from us. You know, Millwall, yeah, they made it uncomfortable for us. They didn't let us get into our groove, but still, we were just so poor. Passes were going astray. The quality in the final third continued to be really poor. We didn't really lay a glove on them. Whittaker didn't have a great game. We'll get onto individual performances in a little bit. He was took off, as was Bergzorg, who didn't inspire either. The players who come on, McGree and Force, like-for-like players. Again, you're not really switching things up all that much. You're changing the personnel, but I wouldn't have said changing the personnel alone would have done enough to really trouble this Millwall defence. And apart from that chance, we didn't trouble them at all. And it petered out to a very disappointing 1-0 defeat for Boro following a second half, which was just nowhere near good enough. And it was the outcome that we feared. Millwall back now, level with us on points, as are now West Brom. We'll have a look at the table in a moment, but the tale of the game was pretty straightforward. You know, we didn't take advantage while we were on top, and then the second half, we allowed Millwall to turn it into the perfect game for them, and they took advantage, and our second half performance was anonymous, really. Really poor. We could have still been there now, and we probably wouldn't have got ourselves back on the score sheet, and it is a damaging performance. You can see so by statistics, even though we had more possession than Millwall, an XG of 0.6 is next to nothing, really. They created by far the more clear-cut opportunities, 13 shots to our 11. Both teams had 4 on target. They had 2 big chances to our 1. But it tells a lot that, again, even though Boro had a good few shots, they weren't of all that high quality. And that's why XG is such an important stat. You might look at the stats and say, well, 13 shots to 11, both teams had 4 on target. That looks like a pretty tight game, right? The chances they created were far more dangerous than the ones Boro created. You know, apart from the forced chance, didn't really create all that much throughout the game, really, and the Whittaker one in the first half. So it just shows you, you know, having all the possession doesn't mean it's all that effective. Millwall are very effective with how they play with little possession, and that's why they're 9th, despite having the lowest average possession in the Championship. And as for the league table, it's not good reading for Boro. As I say, West Brom and Millwall now close up West Brom actually have the better of Boro on goal difference now, dropping us down to 8th. Millwall level with us on 60 points. The fact we've got a 10 plus goal difference could be crucial in our battle with them. But of course, we're not interested in that. We're looking at Bristol City and Coventry. And Bristol City drew today, as I predicted they would, but still, that edges them a point clear of us, a 4-point cushion to 7th. It's all on the Coventry result on Monday for me. If they fail to beat Hull, the gap could be 3 points. Boro have a significant goal difference. You still have an eye in. However, if they win and the gap goes to 4 points to Bristol City, 5 points to Coventry, I think 5th's definitely gone. 4th is looking very unlikely at this moment in time. So it's hard to judge, as I say, until we see that Coventry game on Monday night. But you can't take away the fact that this was a massively, massively damaging result and performance for Boro. Looking at the lineup then, a couple of performances. Mark Travers couldn't do much about their goal again when called upon. Did make a very big save second half, but other than that, didn't have too much to do in the game. We didn't see the same level of quality from Milling Jr. as we have done in recent games. I still thought he got down the left-hand side really well, but his crossing wasn't as good, and I think without that output, we did struggle to create from his left-hand side today. I thought Howson defended well. I thought he still maintained his very good, solid standard of defending of late. Can't say the same for Rav. I thought Rav wasn't as good defensively, lost the ball a few times. He did, I think, lost possession or conceded the free kick early in the second half that sort of led to their wave of attacks. So I think Howson being a bit more no-nonsense in this game helped us. Rav maybe not so much. Dijksteel, a fairly average game, not much to say really. The midfield too, I thought had a much better first half. As I say, they did really well to get on top of their midfield, make the game a game we would thrive in. Second half, it was the complete opposite. Both of them faded, and once Millwall made it a real physical game, our midfield just couldn't really get a grip at all. And the front four were massively disappointing. Again, I find myself sort of excluding Tommy Conway from that because just doesn't have anything to feed on, really. You know, he finds himself out wide a lot to try and get himself into the game. Wasn't really given any chance on goal, a bit like against Leeds, because the three players behind him just aren't delivering the goods. To be honest, you know, as I said at the top, I don't understand why Carrick played them in the positions he did. Bergzog on the right, I've said before, doesn't suit him. I really don't think it suits him at all. But even then, his form of late has been pretty poor, and I think maybe it's time he's taken out of the team for a returning Riley McGree, who did come off the bench today. He's been frustrating me a little bit, Bergzog. You know, when we signed him, we were told that he will frustrate and dazzle in equal measure. I think most of the season he's frustrated. He's dazzled more than he's frustrated. However, in the last few games, he has backhand to frustrate me again. His decision-making in the final third is quality. It can just make you want to pull your hair out at times. There were so many times in this game where he held on to the ball for too long, tried to trick too many, when maybe he should have just gambled, had a shot or played a teammate in. So he was really, really poor on the ball. As was Finazaz, you know, his performances and form continues to drop off. I don't think it's helped when he's playing off the left. As I've said, I much prefer him central, but as was the case in that really bad run of defeats Boro had a month or so ago, when Finazaz isn't on it, Boro aren't on it. And unfortunately, a bit like the Boro team really, Finazaz seems to have a really high ceiling but a very, very low floor. You know, when he's absolutely on it, he is top class. When he's not on it, you're pretty much playing with 10 men, and he's very, very ineffective. And that's the risk with a player like Finazaz. You know, against weaker opposition, he can flurry and thrive. Against the top sides, I do find he struggles quite a bit, and you need a player who's going to consistently be 7 out of 10 every week. And as great as Azaz is, and don't get me wrong, I'm still incredibly grateful for the amount of goal contributions he's given us this season, he does fluctuate a bit from week to week. Some weeks he's up at an 8, 9, 10 out of 10. Other weeks he's down at a 4, 5 out of 10. I feel like we just need a bit more consistency from him against a wider variety of oppositions in a wider variety of games, because in a game like this today, he was just basically anonymous. And the sad thing as well is that Morgan Whittaker just didn't take advantage of his opportunity. You know, I don't think anyone could argue with the fact that he was given a start today. It was a great chance for him. You know, as I say, his cameos have been great, but he didn't take his opportunity today. It was a golden chance for him to take that shirt off Iheanacho. And as much as people want to drop Iheanacho and have him taken out the team, which I get completely, you can't exactly say his competition is taking his chance either when he's given it. And that's Morgan Whittaker. So, yeah, I know I'll discuss this when we preview the Plymouth game, but for me, I think you've got to reshuffle the whole front three. I'd really honestly bring McGree in on the left-hand side, maybe start Force on the right-hand side and keep Azaz in the middle. Maybe you take Iheanacho, Whittaker and Bergsorg out and go with a relatively new front four, because of all the places in Borough's team, that's the place that struggled the most of late and has arguably possibly cost us. So yeah, the front four, the three behind Conway especially, not in good form and struggling quite a lot. So yeah, we are now left in a rough position. As I say, it's not done, it's not over, because Millwall, West Brom, they won't be saying it's over, and their gap to the playoffs is just as big as ours, so perspective is key, as I say. But still, if Coventry do the job on Monday, I do think Boro have a really, really tough task of getting into the top six, and we've got to win 3 of 4, maybe go unbeaten between now and the end of the season, win 3, get a draw, maybe win all 4. If I'm absolutely honest, we're projected to finish on 65 points this season. We're going to need a hell of a lot more than that. You know, the maximum we can finish on is 72. You feel like we can't finish on much less than 70, so you're at least looking at 3 wins and a draw there. So, yeah, it's going to be tough now, and I won't jump to conclusions yet. We won't dissect things too much until the season is done and dusted, but this week has certainly made Boro's task a hell of a lot harder, with a reinvigorated Plymouth coming to Boro on Good Friday, who of course have just beaten Sheffield United. So I will be back midweek to preview that game. I did drop a post on the YouTube channel yesterday, I believe it was, just updating you guys on the upcoming schedule. If you weren't aware or haven't read the posters yet, I am going away over Easter for a week, so we will be previewing and reviewing the Plymouth game and potentially previewing the Sheffield Wednesday game on Easter Monday, but I am going to be away for the Sheffield Wednesday game, so I will not be around to review it, and I won't be back in time to preview Boro's final home game of the season against Norwich either. So things stay as is for the Plymouth game. However, there won't be a review of Wednesday, and I won't be back after that until post-Norwich, when we'll be reviewing that. And who knows, by then, Boro's season might be done and dusted. We'll have to wait and see, but at least for now, we've got a home game next week against Plymouth to hopefully turn things around, get a win. Bristol City have Sunderland, Coventry have West Brom. So there's every chance things might twist and turn in our favour again next weekend, but they simply have to. Boro's playoff hopes are on the ropes right now. But let me know your thoughts on the game, the performance, and Boro's current playoff position in the comment section below, whether you're a Boro fan, Millwall fan or neutral. As always, like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more. We do review and preview every Boro game, unless I'm on holiday, of course, and you can listen to these on the go via the link tree in the description of the video, of course. But until then, I'll be back midweek to preview the Plymouth game,